the field goal. It'll be Jason the Chingel out of the hold of Mesco. Good snap, good hold, and the kick is blocked. Appalachian State has stunned the college football world. One of the greatest upsets in sports history.
Live from Chatterbox Sports Studios, it's Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman.
Well, good morning, good morning, good morning. Big day and a big night ahead. Welcome to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. I'm Thom Brennaman. You may know, you may not know, share with others. We come your way each and every Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon Eastern. You can find us on YouTube/Chatterbox Sports. We ask that you please subscribe, flip on that notification switch. If you'd prefer to join us in podcast form, many of you are, and that's great. We like to say that Casey and Paul have faces made for radio, so you don't need the video. You can go to Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman wherever you get your podcast. Tonight's a big one. Those were the words used by Joe Burrow when asked about this AFC North matchup tonight. And for Burrow, trying to get off the schneid. He has never won a game against the Brownies. The Bengals and Browns get together on this Halloween night in Cleveland, starting at 8. By the way, fellas, happy Halloween to both of you. Casey, Paul, hope you had a good weekend.
Yep. Yes.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, Tom.
Did you have any pictures for us today?
Oh, I
did.
I have one. We don't have it loaded up on the screen. I do have one. It was
We'll pull it up later.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good one.
But you did dress up.
I did. Yeah.
You and your girlfriend, Lizzie.
Yeah, she dressed up more than I did. She put more effort into it than I did. I'll give her credit.
You always better give
I had the idea.
Okay.
She had the effort.
Cincinnati is still a 3-point favorite. Is that where we are? At least it was last night when I sat down to write this. We're still at 3?
Yep.
Okay, now we know the Bengals are without star wide receiver Jamar Chase, out with that hip injury. And the team is also going to be without Eli Apple. He's got a hamstring problem. Is that a big deal? We'll find out. The Browns are missing 2 of their biggest stars in tight end David Njoku. Cornerback Denzel Ward will not play. They are going to activate 2 other cornerbacks that were listed as questionable, one with an abdominal strain, another under the weather ill. And Cleveland will also be without a couple of starting offensive linemen. So there's a lot going on here. Yesterday in the AFC North, the Steelers went to undefeated Philadelphia and were throttled by the Eagles. Jalen Hurts was simply unbelievable yesterday. I mean, I know he's trying to prove to a lot of us, is he the man? Well, if you watch that game yesterday, he throws 3 touchdowns in the first half to A.J. Brown, 4 total in the game, without a single turnover. 35-13 the final. The men of aluminum are now 2-6 on the year. Elsewhere in the NFL, the Jets felt like this was their year to get New England. They lost 12 in a row to their division rivals. But no, the Patriots beat New York 22-17. Bill Belichick gets head coaching win number 325, and that is the regular season and the playoffs. So that breaks a second-place tie all time with Papa Bear George Halas. Don Shula has the most wins ever, 347. The Vikings, meanwhile, get a pair of touchdown passes from Kirk Cousins. Dalvin Cook rushes for 111 yards. Minnesota now 6-1 on the year after beating Arizona. The Dallas Cowboys go to 6-2. 49-29 over Chicago. Tony Pollard rushes for 131 yards and 3 touchdowns for the Cowboys. Now, Did you see the end of this Atlanta-Carolina game? Okay, we're going to show it to you. 20 seconds left. Down 6. Hail Mary. And yes, it is caught by DJ Moore. Tie game. But he takes off his helmet. You're not allowed to do that. 15-yard penalty. They apply it to the point after. The point after turns into a 48-yard try. Okay, this is for the game winner after this Hail Mary touchdown by Moore. He knows better. I don't have a problem with a guy taking off his helmet and celebrating. Neither do you. But he knows better. You take off the helmet, it's 15 yards. So, Eddie Pinheiro trots out there, a PAT away from winning the game, 48 yards out. And the Atlanta fans can't believe it. I mean, how do you get behind the deepest guy? That's the rule of thumb. You can't get behind the deepest guy. 48 yards. Pinheiro misses. He would miss a 31-yarder to win the game in overtime. The Falcons end up winning the game. Carolina would have been in first place, and it's Atlanta now in first place. We'll talk about this in a minute. But look, the rule's a rule. The rule's the rule. I don't have a problem with a guy taking off his helmet. I don't even know why they make that a rule. To me, it seems silly. But, boy, that is a huge mistake. The San Francisco 49ers. Now, when they've got everybody playing, and now they've added Christian McCaffrey, I know their record is only 4-4. But does anybody want to play the Niners? They clobbered the L.A. Rams yesterday. In L.A., it was like a San Francisco home game with that crowd. 31-14. Christian McCaffrey. How about his game? He throws a touchdown pass. He runs for a touchdown. He catches a touchdown pass.
Mr. Do It All.
That's a scary team. That's a scary team. The Geno Smith Show rolls on in Seattle. Seahawks knock off the New York Giants 27-13. Seattle leads the NFC West by a game over the Niners. Geno, 2 touchdown passes, gives him 13 on the year. That ties his prior career high for a season. And last night, Buffalo beat Green Bay 27-17. But I got to tell you, and we'll talk about this as well, I thought Buffalo looked very beatable in that game. Josh Allen, very sloppy with the ball last night. Yeah, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. The Bills' defense, which everybody says, you can't do anything against their defense. Green Bay runs for 208 yards at 7 yards per carry in that game. But, a win is a win. Buffalo is 6-1 and major issues with a pack, 3-5. We go to college football. It was not a good Saturday for the UC Bearcats. They couldn't run it. In the first half, they couldn't do anything on offense. The defense gets gashed for 258 rushing yards in a 25-21 loss at UCF. UC loses for the second time this season and for the first time in conference play since 2019. Very safe bet. The Bearcats now will not play after a second loss in a New Year's Six bowl game. So with that in mind, it begs the question, is it time to try Evan Prater at quarterback to get him ready for next year? That chatter has started among some. You can book it up in Clifton. Second-ranked Ohio State was tested. As you would expect, you're going to number 13, Penn State. 110,000 going crazy. But then came the fourth quarter. It was unbelievable to watch. 28 points for the Buckeyes in the final 15 minutes. They rolled to a 44-31 win. C.J. Stroud, 354 yards, but the player of the game, and I'm going to try to get this right because it's really key. I'm convinced, unless I heard this young man say otherwise, that they're mispronouncing this guy's name on television because in Samoan, and that's his history, he comes from the state of Washington, that's his lineage, J.T. Tuimoloau. You pronounce every single vowel when you're pronouncing Samoan players' names. But did you see what this guy did? I got to tell you, I've broadcast a ton of football, 25 years in the NFL, a lot of college, watched a lot of games just like you. Now, there may be other games where the numbers are better. I don't know. But it might have been the single greatest performance I have ever seen by a defensive lineman in my life. He had 2 interceptions, okay, 2 of those. One of them, he returns for a touchdown. He had 2 sacks in the game. One of them, a strip sack, and he recovered the fumble. He tipped another pass in the game that was intercepted. He had 6 tackles, 3 for loss, and barely played over half the snaps. This was the number 1 recruited defensive lineman in the country last year. And now all of a sudden he's starting to show up on this Ohio State defense. Buckeyes 8-0, and they'll play Northwestern this week. Michigan, also now 8-0. Walloped in-state rival Michigan State 29-7. But it's what happened after the game that has everyone up in arms. Take a look at this. Video on social media showed numerous Michigan State players beating up a Michigan player. And this was in the tunnel after the game. Jim Harbaugh said 2 of his players were assaulted in that tunnel. 1 might have a broken nose. Michigan State coach Mel Tucker said the behavior is unacceptable, and just this morning he announced that 4 players have been suspended indefinitely. Now, one point on this thing, okay? Michigan redid their stadium about 7-8 years ago, and I don't know anything about blowing something up, knocking something down, rebuilding it. I don't know anything about it. But here's what I know. When you have 17 to 22-year-old young men full of testosterone, and they're playing football and competing against each other, and now you add in the rivalry of Michigan and Michigan State, okay? This same thing went down 4 weeks ago when Penn State played at Michigan. When you have all of them going into the same tunnel after a game, you are begging for trouble, okay? Now, I'm not going to play this game because I wouldn't do it the other way. It's not the gun that kills people. It's people that kill people with a gun, right? But this whole thing with the tunnel, and if you go back and look at the video, the Michigan player who was getting beaten up, and I'm not condoning that in any form or fashion, but the way they set it up is Michigan State goes in first together after the game, then Michigan comes in the tunnel after the game. Okay, that's the way they set it up. But this Michigan player goes skipping around and cuts in line in the middle of the Michigan State team. That's how, no doubt, this whole thing started. They have got to figure out a better way. Got to figure out a better way. But I'm guessing at Michigan they won't. Number 1, Georgia. Jumped all over the Florida Gators in the first half, but then the Gators got back in it. And then all of a sudden late, Georgia blows the doors off of them 42-20. You couple that with what Tennessee did to Kentucky. 44-6. So now the showdown is upon us this Saturday. The Volunteers take on Georgia in Athens. First place in the SEC East is on the line, and potentially, of course, so much more. That is a 3:30 kick on CBS. Now, on the other side of the SEC, and this is where we're starting to get now, I mean, we're starting to get down to the nitty-gritty. We got 4 weeks left in the regular season, okay? In Baton Rouge this Saturday, Alabama takes on LSU. You may know this, you may not. But Brian Kelly's team at LSU shares first place in the SEC West with Alabama. The winner of this game, more than likely, plays in the SEC championship. For Alabama, that wouldn't be a surprise. For LSU, that would be a shocker. That's this Saturday. TCU is now 8-0. Beat West Virginia in Morgantown, 41-31. The Horned Frogs host Texas Tech this Saturday. I'm going to be there. Very excited about that. Watch the Horned Frogs. Tell you what, Big 12 has a lot of good teams. They may not have a great team. I don't know if TCU's a great team or not, but they've got a lot of good teams in that league. A lot. And UC has its work cut out for it, joining that conference next season. And lastly, in baseball, the World Series continues tonight after an off day yesterday. They go to Philadelphia. Series is even at 1 game apiece. Lance McCullers Jr. on the hill for the Astros. Noah Syndergaard, the former Met, will start it for the Philadelphia Phillies. We got a ton of people with us today here, boys. We got a lot.
We got a lot.
We got a lot. 6412 Mars says, great sportsmanship. Alex Wallace says, it's 95 years old, Tom. Stop this nonsense. What's 95? Michigan Stadium?
I think he's talking about Michigan Stadium.
They redid the thing. They could have fixed it. Sir Boy Wonder is back. Andrew is here. Says if LSU didn't collapse against Florida State, they'd be looking at a playoff berth if you beat Bama. Matt says go Dogs. Let's see here. LaDainian Tomlinson, Andrew points out, was the last player to rush, catch, and throw a touchdown. That happened in 2005. So you're up to speed, fellas. You're up to speed. All right. Bengals v. Brownies. Here we go. Tonight, Halloween night. Boy, now that would be fun to be up there in Cleveland tonight, I have to say, because whether you like the Browns, don't like the Browns, most of you watching this show clearly do not, but it is a great venue for a football game. They got the Muni lot right out there for tailgating and the whole 9 yards. That place will be jumping tonight. Casey, have you changed your feeling about this being all Bengalis without Jamar Chase?
No, I have not changed any feeling. They're without Wyatt Teller and Denzel Ward. They were officially ruled out like on Friday, of all things. So, I mean, they're down some guys. We're down some guys. We have the better roster. The Browns stink. Thank you, Boy Wonder. The Browns stink. And by the way,
oh boy,
I've created a tier list I'm eventually going to post on my Twitter every week at the end of this NFL weekend that goes over what teams stink, borderline stink, borderline good, and good. Those are really the only 4 tiers that we got. And
are you putting the Bengals in the good category or borderline good?
Borderline good.
Okay, all right.
And they're almost
all
borderline
right, I give
stink.
it up to you, Case.
They're almost borderline stink. If you look at it, they're one team
Borderline
away.
stink? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, if they lose
the Bengals I'm talking about.
Yeah. If they lose against the
Borderline
Browns.
Stink. Wow.
If they lose against the Browns.
You haven't even moved in your new place yet. I was going to say maybe the smell, not of napalm, but the smell of everything's beautiful with the Bengals. I can't say that that's happened in your new crib because you're moving in maybe today.
Yeah,
maybe today.
Maybe today. I might move in a few things. I talked about moving the bed over there already, but that probably will be saved until the weekend. But I'll be in that house. I'll have the keys. We're going to check it out, make sure everything was moved out properly and whatnot. But anyways, the Browns stink. If the Bengals lose against the Browns, they're a borderline stink team, man. I mean, they got to get it going. They got to show that they're a good team, right? They got to go out there and assert dominance against a team that's lowly, worse than them. I mean,
it's a desperate Cleveland team. We talk about it all the time. This is a very, very, very desperate team.
It is. Yeah.
I mean, this is their season tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Without a doubt. And we said it on this show. We all agreed 2 weeks ago before they played the Baltimore Ravens. They were going to Baltimore, tough place to win. They get beat, tight game to go to 2-5. But we said if they lost to the Ravens and the Bengals, that the Browns season is over. I don't care who's coming back to play quarterback. 2-6 is 2-6. Now, you're not playing in a division where if the Bengals win tonight, they're 5-3. Baltimore's 5-3. But you're 3 games back, roughly midway through the year, close to midway through the year. This is their season tonight.
Yeah, they know it. The fans know it. Everybody knows that, like you said, Tom, if the Browns lose this game, their season's over. And quite honestly, you go out, you get that free agent quarterback, you get Deshaun Watson, and you make all these moves, you do everything to try and set yourself up for success. And then what happens? He gets suspended, and now you put yourself with the back against the wall, and you say to yourself, all right, you got to go out there and win this game, because if they don't, you're not digging yourself out of this hole. And then what do you do with Deshaun Watson when he comes back? Do you risk putting him out there for the last few weeks of the season?
Well, of course you do. You're paying him a gazillion dollars.
I think that's more of a rhetorical question. I know that you're going to put him out there because you're not going to waste the money that you spent. But at the same time, if you lose this game tonight, then you lose one or two more before he comes back, because his return's sort of right around the corner. Man, I don't know. That's a tough risk for the Browns to even go out there, because could you imagine if he got hurt in some meaningless game in December, and then all of a sudden you've wasted – that'd be the most Browns thing of all time is what it would be.
Yeah, and here's the injury list, who's all out for the Browns, by the way. Wyatt Teller, Denzel Ward, David Njoku. It looks like Greg Newsome is questionable. Greedy Williams is questionable.
No, they updated this morning. Both of those guys are going to play. Those two corners.
Okay.
They
Okay.
updated just a little while ago.
I'm just looking at the ESPN
Yep.
full report for all the teams, but those were what was listed, and they put a offensive tackle on injured reserve.
Yep.
Joe Haig. I don't know if he's a backup or whatever, but besides the point, they're without Wyatt Teller and Denzel Ward. Those are their two Pro Bowl caliber players. And Njoku.
Heck of a player.
He's a great tight end. Many Bengals fans wanted him when he was up on the trade block. I mean, this is a for sure win. Or they got to win this game for the Bengals. If they don't, then they stink. They just stink.
The other thing, too, and I don't know why I said free agent. I was going back and looking at the trade for Deshaun Watson. The Texans, you got to remember, they got 2022, 2023, 2024, the first-round picks for Watson. So if you're having a bad season for the Browns, at least you look forward to the draft, but you're not really looking forward to the draft. So
yeah, but you're getting a guy, and look, I don't know what he's going to be like when he comes back, because he didn't play virtually all of last year. He hasn't played through the first 11 weeks of this year. But he is still take the personal part out of it and everything that's happened. He is still an extraordinarily talented player. I mean, I think when he is healthy and playing well, and I know some people will scream and yell at this next statement, but I truly believe that when he is healthy and playing well, he is a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson. He throws it better. He doesn't run it as well, but he can run it.
I don't think that's controversial, Tom.
Well, I mean, there's some people out there that would say, and look, Lamar Jackson's won an MVP. He's been a really good player in this league. We talked about this with Brian Billick last week when it came down to, and I'm going to ask him today. He comes on 11 o'clock. I'm going to ask him today about Watson v. Jackson. But the bottom line is, as we sit here today, is they don't have him playing tonight. Did you see the comments over the weekend by Kareem Hunt?
What did he say?
Okay, well, this is a backup running back. Without a doubt, the best backup running back in the NFL. Not even debatable. And he's an impactful player for the Browns. Trade deadline's coming up. He was asked about it, and he said, look, what you would expect him to say. He says, I know nothing about it. My job is to come in here and be prepared to play every single day. So is there a little extra motivation? Many seem to believe that there might be for Kareem Hunt to go out there and get it done tonight. That running back duo of Chubb and Hunt presents a major, major task tonight for this Cincinnati defense.
Yeah, especially without DJ Reader.
Yeah, without DJ Reader, it's going to be a tough battle. This Browns team, as much as we talk about them not running the ball, they do run the ball. They run it about 50% of the time. They probably should run it 60% of the time, but they're going to ground and pound us, and we got to be ready for it. Without Josh Tupou, that leaves our boy Jay Tufele that I have high hopes for that you guys don't seem to like that much. But I think with Logan Wilson's return, with how this defense has been playing, being able to shut teams out in the second half.
Yep, from touchdowns.
I think we have a pretty good chance of being able to limit them in their run big play ability. I mean, they're not going to beat us over the top. Jacoby Brissett is not going to do that.
Well, I got to tell you, I mean, I brought it up in the open. They got Cam Taylor-Britt a lot more work in the last couple of weeks, right? And many have suspected that ultimately he would take over for Apple as that fifth defensive back. And in the league now, pro and college, that fifth guy is a starter. He's a starter. Well, tonight, Britt will be starting for the first time. Now, look, people take shots at Eli Apple all the time, but I think the guy's a good player. And he's been a good player for the Bengals. Has he been a perfect player for the Bengals? No. No one's been a perfect player for the Bengals. Nobody. Not Burrow, not Chase, not Hendrickson, not Reeder. Nobody's been perfect. But Apple's had some big moments for this team. And now all of a sudden, even though you don't think Brissett can beat him over the top, I think Brissett's a pretty decent quarterback. I mean, he'd be average as a full-time starter, maybe a little better than average. He's way above average as a backup quarterback in the league. No doubt about that. Who would you rather have, him or Brandon Allen? Tell the truth. No brainer. No brainer. No shot at Brandon Allen, but who would you rather have? But all of a sudden now with Britt in there, what's that do to the Bengals defense?
Well,
first-time starter, Monday Night Football, big division rival game. Is Britt up for the challenge?
I think he is. He was doing really well in the preseason before he got hurt. I think he needed to actually be in there sooner, quite honestly, just to get him more acclimated to that role. It was a shame that he went down the way he did in preseason. But this is a perfect time when you know they're going to run the ball a lot. He's not going up against the number one. He's going up against the number two and Donovan Peoples-Jones. It's probably a fair matchup. Same sort of body types, bigger guys. Cam Taylor-Britt is a really good tackler. He's been known to be really well against the run. I think this is a great opportunity for him to start, honestly. Yep. I really do. I don't think if we were talking about like the Bills or the Chiefs, I might be a little bit more scared. But considering how the Browns don't really have a number two guy, considering how they love to run the ball, and that's what his strengths are, I think we'll be all right.
All right.
I have a couple of stats for you, and these are not encouraging for the Bengals, but I am going to throw them out there. Andrew brought it up a little bit. I was going to expand on it a little more. The Bengals are 0-12 in their last 12 road primetime games, but even looking back farther than that, they're 1-22 in their last 23, and they're 5-16-2 against the spread in those 23 primetime road games. So
now most of those, to be fair, were during the Marvin Lewis, Andy Dalton.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. And look at what the Bengals have done in primetime. The other at home, beating the Dolphins this year, but they did lose to the Ravens.
How many wins did they have in primetime?
0 on the road.
0?
N-U-N none.
Well, that doesn't count playoffs then.
Well, those aren't night games. This is in prime time. They won during the playoffs during the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
I know what you're saying, though.
Yeah,
I know what you're saying, but those numbers don't lie. Those are facts.
Yeah.
What else you want to add to that?
No, that was it.
Are you surprised that the line is 3?
It really hasn't moved at all. I'm not too surprised. I think that's probably a good number, and honestly we'll get into it, I guess, a little bit. Or no, we already picked the Bengals in the Browns game, so I guess I'll just say it now. I was going to say that the Bengals win tonight 23-20, and I think that the Bengals have a better chance to win by more than 3 than the Browns have to cover, which is why I took the Bengals, if that makes sense. So I just feel like that the Bengals have a chance to go out there tonight on the road and win this game by more than 3 points, better than I feel like the Browns could. But I do think this is going to be I think this is going to come down to the end. I think it'll be a grinded out close game.
Maybe this is just the fan in me. I'm starting to feel, I can smell it in the air.
Oh, boy.
I can smell the victory aroma.
You just went from a guy 10 minutes ago. All right, I'm going to stop there because we had someone ask on here, since you're teasing that moving forward you're going to have, what are the categories again? Really stink?
Stink. Really, so it's stink, borderline good, and good.
Okay. You were the guy who just said a minute ago that if the Bengals lose, they fall into the
borderline stink.
Okay.
But
right now, who would be in the category? And maybe I'm throwing you on the spot.
No,
because,
go ahead.
Don't worry, we got the data.
Who are the teams right now that officially, according to Casey McAllister in the National Football League, who are the teams that officially stink? Not borderline stink.
Oh, there's a lot.
You got some time, Tom?
You want to talk? You ready for this one?
I'm ready.
Let me
Apparently
pull it up.
so are those watching right now.
Do we have enough time left in this show?
All right, listen. Here we go. I'm going to start rapid firing these off, all right? Starting from the worst teams. Panthers, Steelers.
Hold on a minute.
Already?
Let me stop. You're saying really stink the Carolina Panthers? They're one dumb mistake away from being in first place in the NFC South. Now, that division stinks. But you mean to tell me you're putting the Panthers in the same category as the Steelers?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
All right, hang on. I actually have Week 7. That was last week, right? The NFL season was Week 7?
Yes, this was Week 8 this week.
I'm gonna put it on the screen for everyone to look at.
This is
some top tier producing right here.
We're waiting on that.
Well, we got it right here.
We got it right here.
It's already up here.
Here we go.
Oh, wow. I like this. This is like the stuff you see out of USA Today where it's easy to read. I'm convinced, and that's a topic for another time, that all graphics that are put up in sporting events, they should be more like this. It's easy for people to digest.
Yeah. And most people are familiar with the tier maker graphic. Anyways, there's a lot of teams that stink here. And some of them
You're saying New England stinks?
Oh, yeah. They stink. They stink.
I mean, look, we start at that bottom level. The Bears don't stink.
Yeah,
they borderline stink. The Patriots. The
Bears?
The Patriots definitely do not. They definitely do
Hold
not.
Hold on. No. We got to go back to the Bears.
They're only on that list right there. There are only 3 teams that stink. The Lions stink, the Texans stink, and the Steelers stink. Outside of that, you can't say the Panthers, Broncos,
there's a lot
Bears
of teams that
and
stink.
Patriots stink.
Yeah.
The Bears are
You're
terrible.
putting Jacksonville ahead of New England?
Tom, the Bears are trash.
No, they're not.
The Bears are below stink.
No, they're not.
Let me add a 5th tier.
Below stink?
No, they don't.
I'm going to add a separate category.
I'll tell you another team. Put that back up. I'll
Okay.
tell you another team that belongs officially in the stink category, and that's the Las Vegas Raiders. They stink.
They stink.
Well, they're there.
But listen, there's a lot of teams that just stink right now. Some teams that borderline stink.
The Saints stink.
The Saints stink. The Jets probably should fall to the stink category.
No, they're not there yet.
Yeah, because
I'm with
Patriots
you.
stink. The
I
Jets
cannot
stink.
believe you have the 6-1 Minnesota Vikings and the 5-3 Seattle Seahawks and
Listen, this was week
Baltimore Ravens and 49ers.
This was
at
week
borderline. I mean, are you kidding me?
There's got to be some movement because some of these teams won.
You think the Chargers are better than the Seahawks, the Vikings, and the Ravens? The Chargers?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, Casey, good Lord.
Listen. If we're
Good
gonna,
Lord.
let's just digest this for a second and hear me out. Vikings are almost borderline good. They're the next team up. Bengals would replace that spot if they lost. Seahawks probably should be in borderline good. Giants fall to borderline stink. Ravens probably should be borderline good. Miami, they're still borderline stink. And San Francisco, almost borderline good. I think they move up as well. Same with the Titans. Jets fall, of course, because the Patriots stink. LA stinks really bad. I think they should move down a couple more pegs. Let me see. I mean,
The
Denver,
Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, come on. How can you put the Jacksonville Jaguars or the Las Vegas Raiders?
hang on. This, like I said, this was last week. So Jags got to fall back a couple teams.
Wait, is it? Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Is this in order of the teams that are the Saints closest to the borderline stink and the Panthers are the worst team in the league?
Yes, correct.
Oh, so this is ranked in the order of ways that in the order of the stinkage.
Yes.
So
Yes,
you
it
mean
is.
to tell is that also
that
true
changes the whole dynamic.
Is that also true at the top?
Yes.
So
Bills are
you
number
have
one.
as the 5th best team in the National Football League, if I'm reading this correctly.
Yeah.
You have the Los Angeles Chargers as the 5th best team in the NFL.
Correct.
Oh, my Lord. All right, let's go to my Power 5. Can you pull those up?
Oh, I got it right here. Hold on.
All right, pull this up. These are my Power 5. I may have to start going with the tier maker. Eagles haven't lost. I don't know how you don't put them number 1. I have no idea how you don't put – I mean, look at those numbers.
They're
3rd in
frauds.
offense, 4th in defense. The Bills, number 2, although looked beatable last night. The Chiefs, the defense, suspect. Teams continue to win. You have to put them up there. And I know they haven't beaten very many good teams. Minnesota, I have 4. And the Dallas Cowboys have moved into the number 5 spot. They went 4-1 without Dak Prescott. He's back. Didn't look so good the first week. Little better yesterday. But Tony Pollard looked incredible with Ezekiel Elliott out. And we know about Micah Parsons and the defense. That's my top 5. I'm wondering if we should not start to add to this show what do they call tier maker?
Tier
Yeah,
maker.
the tier maker, and I am going to update the stink list.
You really need a lot
I'm-
of updating on that list.
Well, this
A
was
lot.
before the Week 7 game started, so of course some of that's going to be inaccurate.
Leif Erikson, one of the great Vikings of all time, says, Casey, I'm considering raiding your new home for the way you are dissing my Vikings.
Well,
Ask the natives of Newfoundland what happens when you sleep on the Vikings. It's a legitimate question.
they haven't played anyone.
Well, I mean, I can't argue with that. I went back and looked at when I was trying to put this top 5 together. I was trying to look at some of the wins these teams have. And the Vikings, they really haven't beaten anybody. But the bottom line is they're winning games, fellas, is what we talked about with the Bengals, okay? You can't have it both ways. You can't say, you haven't beaten anybody, but then dismiss the fact that the Bengals, virtually every game they have played this year, they have played against a backup quarterback. That's almost impossible to have happen.
Well,
And they're 4-3. They're 4-3. This team lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
on a fluke. On a
Call it
fluke.
whatever you want to call it. Call it whatever you want to call it. They lost to the Steelers.
And by the way, I will say that I'm not a homer. They're almost borderline stink. Come on. The Bengals are almost borderline stink.
Okay, all right. Andrew says Vikings are limited by Kirk Cousins. And I'm with you on that. I've not been a big Cousins guy. I don't think he can win the big one for you. I don't. I might prove to be wrong. I've done a lot of his games. Seems like a pleasant dude, but push comes to shove. And Andrew, I think correctly, says he's a lot like Andy Dalton. When you really need him, more often than not, comes up small.
Well, I'm just looking at the schedule right now, and he plays Washington. That's probably a win.
Maybe. Commanders. The Commanders.
The Wizards.
That's right.
The Washington Wizards. But after that, they play Buffalo and Dallas. Oof. That's going to be tough for Kirk Cousins. And then I guess
Those are Minnesota's next 2 games?
after Washington.
So
the next 3 games are Washington, Buffalo, and Dallas.
Okay.
And your New England Patriots that don't stink.
They don't stink.
They stink. They stink. Their offensive line is terrible.
I just didn't realize when this got sent out last week that those bottom tier teams were like in order of the teams that stink. So
that needs a lot of
Well,
updating.
no,
We ought to dismiss that
I wanna
list
see it one more
right
time.
away.
Who was-
I'll make the Week 8 list, okay? And it'll be updated, and
We'll do that
debate
tomorrow.
then. Yeah, we'll bring it back up tomorrow, everyone, so then we can talk about it, see what we think. But I got to tell you, there's a lot of teams in the NFL that just stink. More than half the teams in the league.
Well,
Okay.
the one thing is look, the league has what it wants, okay? The league has what it wants, and that is parity and everybody has a chance. And we talk about this all the time, fellas, is unlike baseball, when a season begins. Now, look, there are teams going into a year are going to be better than others. That's clear and obvious for multiple reasons. But there's a whole group in there, right, the way the league is set up, whether it's the way they do the draft, the way they do the schedule, all those kinds of things, free agency, trades, whatever it might be. You don't walk into the year in most NFL cities and feel like we don't have a chance in the world to make the playoffs. Now, this year or any given year, there's a handful, right? I mean, there's a handful. Houston knew this year that they're not going to go into the postseason, and there are others. But that's one of the it might be the single best thing at the end of the day about the NFL. Yes, you get mediocrity. Yes, you get a lot of 4-3, a lot of 3-4, 4-4, 5-3, 3-5, right on that edge of making it or not making it. But that's what makes a league so good and appealing to people, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the NFL is one of the best leagues for competition just because of how it's built. There's just nothing that can compete with that until, like, baseball starts doing something like that. The NBA is too hard to really replicate that. I don't think that's going to ever happen. I don't know. If there's other games, like hockey might be up there for something like that.
Well,
but
everybody makes the playoffs.
Yeah, that's
You know what I
tough.
mean?
Yeah, that's tough too. And soccer's the only other one. MLS and I'm not too sure about Premier League, but MLS, if people started to actually like the sport, I think you would have some of that same parity that people can get good after a couple years of sucking.
Like FC Cincinnati has.
Yeah, just like FC Cincinnati has.
That's right.
Okay, so for tomorrow, I want you to make this new graphic, Casey, but I don't want you to look at the old graphic. Like, I don't want you to just update it. I want you to go back in and do a fresh start. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And we'll see how closely it matches up.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
That sounds good.
Okay.
I'll get it all figured out for you guys. And if you don't like the way my tier list is set up, you just tell me in the comments. I see some of you talking about me having a division winner in there. Look, there's got to be a division winner sometimes.
That's exactly right.
And-
Not sometimes, all the time.
And let me tell you, I don't care if it's I'm not sure who they're specifically talking about. It's probably like NFC South or something. All those teams stink. I don't care what you say. Panthers stink. They gave up that terrible, terrible win that they should have had. Atlanta, we just beat the crap out of them. They stink. Saints, if they had a quarterback, maybe they'd be good, borderline good. Who knows? But they stink. They got Andy Dalton starting for them. Come on. And then you look at the Tom Brady Ravens game. Tom Brady is not looking good.
No, he's not.
He's not looking good.
And it's too bad for the league because, look, I know there are a lot of Brady haters out there, and I don't know why anybody would hate Tom Brady, except for the fact that maybe they beat your team all the time. But if you hate Tom Brady, it's either that or it's just straight jealousy. That's all it is because this guy's never – let me back up. That deflate gate, but that's a long time ago. But that still, to me, is very, very shaky. Very shaky.
How so?
Because there was some that should have been a stiffer fine for the Patriots. That should have been a stiffer penalty, in my opinion. Somebody was playing around with those footballs. There's no question about that. And anybody that believes otherwise has just lost their mind. They got their head in the sand. But the point I'm making is this. Brady has always been a good dude, stand-up guy, great player, greatest quarterback of all time, no doubt. Mary's a supermodel. And now all of a sudden he came out over the weekend, as we suspected, as has been reported, that Brady and his wife are getting a divorce. There are children involved in this whole thing. There's a lot going on there. We're not getting into all that. That's their business. But the guy's been a phenomenal player. I don't know how you hate the guy. I really don't. I really don't. He's been a good citizen. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about some of these other games around the NFL, okay? Because we got lots of time today to talk about the Bengals. We're going to get to our picks a little bit later. I am really interested in asking Brian Billick a question today, and he's going to join us at 11 o'clock. Brian Billick is considered to be one of the greatest offensive minds in the history of the NFL, going all the way back to when he was offensive coordinator in Minnesota, when they had Chris Carter and Randy Moss and Jake Reed and all those guys running around, Robert Smith, the running back. They broke all kinds of single-season records for yards and points and all these kinds of things. It goes to Baltimore, wins the Super Bowl, blah, blah, blah. But I'm curious to find out if, as a head coach and an offensive-minded head coach, which Zach Taylor clearly is, does not having Jamar Chase change the way you're going to call plays tonight or the way you feel is best for your offense to now try and move forward without a guy that is by far your biggest and best big play guy? So we'll talk about that with Brian Billick after 11 o'clock. Want to hit some of these other topics, some of the other games, some of the other teams. Want to talk about the Michigan State thing a little bit. Really ugly. 26 days from now, Ohio State v. Michigan at the Horseshoe in Columbus. I mean, two trains. Here they come. If both come in undefeated, and there have been huge games in the past of that rivalry, this could be the biggest one of them all if they both roll in undefeated. Both of them. We're back in a moment.
At United Dairy Farmers, we've perfected freshness in our family bakery, where we use only the finest ingredients, like thick, high-quality glazes on our signature donuts, before delivering them fresh from bakery to store every day. UDF, made for you.
If your AC or furnace is struggling, turn to the experts at Bartell's Heating and Cooling. Their certified technicians get the job done right the first time. And if you need a new unit, Bartell's will give you upfront pricing with no hidden fees. Plus, ask about Bartell's 0% interest financing for 60 months. Learn more at bartellsheatingandcooling.com. Bartell's Heating and Cooling, for a comfortable way of life. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, proudly sponsoring high school football with 3 locations in Mason, Liberty Township, and Ross, Ohio. Our 10-foot screens guarantee a great view from every seat in the house. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, the best place in Cincinnati for sports, food, and fun.
Where can you turn when you're in pain? Turn where more high school, college, and pro athletes turn. Where your neighbors and weekend warriors turn. Turn to Beacon Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and get superior care on your schedule. That's the Beacon difference.
Check out our fresh arrivals at Jake Sweeney Used Cars. Over 250 used vehicles weekly. All makes, all models. From economy to luxury, Jake Sweeney, the original used car superstore.
And you look this up in a medical book, he's got FSB.
FS what?
FSB. It's short.
All right, welcome back to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers with Casey McAllister, Paul Frischner. I'm Thom Brennaman. All right, guys, I want to hit a few topics here. We will start in college football. The whole Michigan State thing. You look at this, and we mentioned just this morning, Mel Tucker, the head coach at Michigan State, has suspended indefinitely 4 players for that ugly, ugly scene that took place in the tunnel. After the game was over, Michigan wins 29-7. What are your thoughts on that, fellas?
Yeah, it didn't look great. In fact, it honestly kind of reminded me of the Xavier and Cincinnati brawl from like 10 years ago.
Yep.
Because that was the same issue, was that both teams were going down into the same tunnel. Now, obviously, that brawl happened on the court. It was a little different, but both teams were going down the same tunnel. There was some jawing at halftime of that game. And then now, if you see Xavier and their opponents always go in the opposite tunnels now, that problem was immediately corrected. And that's something that you talked about with this Michigan game. But I saw that clip of the Michigan player going in and trying to ease his way in. Now, that's not
Skipping, I might add. That's kind of rubbing it in somebody's face a little bit.
Yeah, it is. I think it was an avoidable situation if he doesn't put himself in that position. But at the same time, like I don't want to victim blame on that one. To be able to just gang up on him and do that in the tunnel like that that's a bad look. That is not a good situation. It's a bad look. The chat is saying I'm being silenced right now that my microphone is off. Are we
Really?
there? I think there we are. Are we back on now? So basically, what I said there was that this is the same type of situation that we saw like from the Crosstown shootout with the brawl now 10 or 11 years ago, where both teams entered and exited through the same tunnel. Now, that brawl happened on the court at the end of the game, but that was a problem that Xavier immediately corrected, and now both teams enter and exit the court through opposite tunnels. This was a situation where the Michigan player started skipping into the huddle, skipping into the line as he went into the tunnel, and it was an avoidable situation. If he just doesn't do that, maybe tempers are a little more calm, things don't happen. But like you said in the beginning of the show, when you have a bunch of guys that are 18 to 22 years old that are all together after an emotional game, after Michigan just lays it thick on Michigan State, it's a tough spot to be in that you have to calm yourself down and you can't let the emotion get the best of you, but they did, and that's a terrible scene. There's no excuse, no matter how bad your emotion runs, no matter how heated you are, no matter how big the rivalry is. There's a reason they said the police were investigating. I mean, this is a borderline crime.
Well, look.
And I don't think that's an exaggeration. A lot of times you hear that in fights and sports and you hear people say, oh, it happens. My guy, he was getting just destroyed, 5-6 on one in a tunnel.
This is the last 2 home games played at Michigan. This is 2 games in a row now where this has happened. 2 games in a row. I was with Urban Meyer one night last week. He showed me a picture that somebody sent to him going back to 2017. And in this picture is him coming out of that tunnel before a game. 3 people are snapshotted spitting on Urban Meyer. Spitting on the head coach of the visiting team. I mean, this Michigan thing's out of control. It's out of control. And, people can sit there and get mad at me and, oh, Ohio State lover, blah, 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 blah. I would say the same thing if this was happening at Ohio State. And I'm not saying there haven't been things that have happened at Ohio State or wherever, but this thing is out of control. They've got to get it fixed. I don't know how they fix it. I said that at the beginning, but they better change it. All right. The University of Cincinnati. There are some in Clifton right now. And maybe it's not even whispering. They're saying it out loud. Is it time to give Evan Prater, now that you've lost 2 games? All along they went with the senior and the transfer back to UC, Ben Bryant. Okay, and this isn't an indictment on Bryant in any form or fashion. He's played quite well for the team this year. But now that you've lost 2, you're not going to a New Year's 6 bowl game. It's not going to happen. Your chances of winning the conference are really, really tough at this point. Possible, but tough. Do you consider starting Evan Prater from now on at quarterback to get him ready for next year? Because next year he's your guy, or at least it looks like he's your guy.
Yeah, I think you at least kick the tires on it, right? I think you at least give him some series here and there and see how he does, stack him up. And like you said, now that you're not playing for a New Year's Six Bowl, you have Navy, East Carolina, what is that, Casey? Temple and Tulane to end your season.
Tulane's ranked, pretty good team.
Tulane's ranked. But
ECU killed UCF. Yeah,
but you're playing a triple option team this week and Navy. Go out there and give your young guys some reps, right? I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. Give him some series. Let him go out there and try and get some experience under his belt if you're building for the future.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Fickell – I'm not saying he doesn't have the guts. Like, that's not the right term, but –
I know what you're saying.
Like, it's a senior, and he's not playing to the standard, right? I mean, it's not like he's got a terrible percentage.
No.
Or, I don't know. I would love for that to happen if we were a top-tier program and we didn't care about who was starting at quarterback. We just want to see wins or progress to see what we got at quarterback. But maybe the plan is for them to do the last 2 games of the season or something like that. Or maybe just play him against Tulane, like a ranked opponent. I don't know.
I would rather maybe see a combo because we thought we'd start to see the combo, and we saw a little bit of it when Bryant got nicked up and Prater came in and played real well at the end of the game. I think that was winning the game, if I'm not mistaken, against South Florida, homecoming.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to see – and look, it's Luke Fickell's team, and who in the world – there's nobody in the country. Not Ryan Day, not Jim Harbaugh, not Nick Saban, nobody. Nobody can question Luke Fickell. Nobody. What he's done at this program is off the charts, higher heights. Not every year is going to be like last year, getting to the college football playoff, clearly. But don't you have to consider maybe at this point, maybe you don't bench Bryant, but you have to start mixing in some series from time to time, I would think this week with Prater. Is that a better way to do it?
Well, here the other thing, too, you keep in mind is look at a guy like Fickell who has been very steadfast in his choice. Look back at Desmond Ridder and some of the question marks that Desmond Ridder had early on. He stuck with him. It stuck with him. He stuck with him. And then it paid off big time. And now Desmond Ridder's in the NFL, and you have a team that competed for a national championship last year. So the difference here being, though, that you have a UC team that isn't necessarily – you still have a shot to win your conference, but at the same time, are you trying to develop – what do you value more? And you have a shot to go out there and win your conference, but you also have a shot to develop your quarterback who, like you said, did win you a game against South Florida. So I'll be interested to see what Fickell does. He's been pretty, like I said, I think steadfast is a good word to use. And when he makes up his mind about these kinds of things, he'll stick with it for a while. Prater, we had question marks about it, especially when Bryant wasn't playing very well early on in the season. What must Evan Prater look like with the way that Ben Bryant was playing earlier? But then Ben Bryant kind of settled into a bit of a groove, and we haven't had those question marks now. But the only reason you really have the question mark now is because you lose the game and you're not competing for that New Year's Six Bowl anymore necessarily.
Well, yeah, David Weathers, who I'm sure, as you know, used to pitch for the Reds out of their bullpen, one of our regular followers here, says the difference between sticking with a young freshman and not a fifth-year quarterback out of eligibility. And I think, Casey, that's what you're saying.
Yeah, I was going to actually mention the same comment. David brings up a good point. I mean, sticking with a young freshman, you're trying to gauge their ability, and a fifth-year quarterback, that's like, you already know he's gone after this year. I just don't know if Fickell will do that to one of his guys. Like, that's one of his guys. So to me, what I see is what you described, getting Prater in there every other drive, something like that.
Yeah.
Especially when these scenarios happen, which haven't happened often because this team has been not as good. And when we go over the picks, I'll even bring it up again, but UC has not blown anyone out except for Kennesaw State.
Right.
There hasn't been an opportunity for Prater to get in to see what he can do. I mean, all these games the last 3 or 4 weeks have been close.
Yep.
Even going all the way back to Indiana, and I know we were blowing them out, but they ended up kind of rallying back in that game. So they needed to still play Ben Bryant to stay ahead. So maybe we see more of him just because we're out of that bowl game discussion, but we can still win the ACC, right? If
it can still win, absolutely.
Yeah,
and the road is not that it's a challenging road because you're going to play some pretty good teams, including Tulane and an East Carolina team. Dan Hoard talked about it last week. They've got a lot of good players, talented team, smoked UCF. I mean, blew that team out of the water. By the way, has Brian Billick gotten a link?
Yes, he should have gotten a link.
So we should have him coming up hopefully here shortly. Apparently you threw together at the last minute a poll. Does Casey's tier link stink? And I can't believe 54 to 45. Yes and no. I can't believe 45% of you out there believe that doesn't stink.
Well, listen, it's got to be updated.
I mean, come on.
Once I update it, that number is going to reverse. 54 of you are going to say it doesn't stink, and 45 of you say it will stink. But, I mean, come on. It's not a bad list. It's really not. Like if you want to argue about it, maybe being the Ravens too low, that might be one. But it's really not a bad list. It's really not. It's not super Bengal homer-ish or anything like that.
I appreciate how you're talking us into this tier list.
I mean, just look at it one more time, folks.
Yes.
All those teams below at the stink list.
Why are we putting this up when it's a week old?
We're going to go back to it.
I know you are, and then that's when people want to see it.
So are we getting the new one tomorrow?
We're getting the new one tomorrow.
Okay.
Getting the new one tomorrow.
Zachary asked a very good question here.
Yeah, that's a miss.
This is a legitimate question.
It's a miss.
My wife brought this up with me, actually. Why didn't we dress up today for Halloween? I thought about it, and then it kind of went, see you later. Because I still have one of the great costumes that I started wearing when my kids were about 3 and 1. A pirate costume. It's a big league costume. I thought about breaking it out today for the show. Clearly I didn't. I'd look better in that pirate outfit than I look right now. But neither one of you guys obviously thought of dressing up either.
Well, I told people that I would dress up as Jamar Chase, and I've got my jersey on. But that's about it. That's all I'm going to be doing for Halloween.
The artist formerly known as Jamar Chase, because he's not playing tonight.
Yeah, big miss. We should have dressed up. I dressed up as a producer, I guess. I don't know.
I wonder if Chase is going up to the game tonight. Not that it matters. It doesn't matter. But, he might be able to help somebody on the sideline, but maybe they say, you know what, you keep him off that hip as much as you can and heal that thing up and stay right here with the Bengals team doctors and rehab folks and all that kind of thing. It really doesn't matter one way or the other.
Brian Billick.
Is he here?
He is here.
All right. Okay. So we welcome in the former Super Bowl winning head coach of the Baltimore Ravens. Brian, good morning. Hope you had a good weekend, my man. How's everything?
Doing great.
Question. You're the head coach, and maybe this is not the best example to ask you about because we've talked with you from time to time back when you were in Minnesota and you had Chris Carter and you had Randy Moss and you had Jake Reed, right? And you had an outstanding back in Robert Smith, just a great offense, one of the great offenses in the history of the league. But was there ever a time where you were, there's my daughter calling me from TCU wondering when her dad's coming into town. Was there ever a time where you lost your big play guy, as the Bengals have today? And look, T. Higgins can make big plays. Tyler Boyd can make big plays. Joe Mixon can make big plays. But Jamar Chase is the guy. I think right now he's the best wide receiver in the NFL. The numbers don't lie. But now all of a sudden that big play guy, and a lot of that stuff is outside the numbers they do with him, so to speak, in football vernacular. Does it change the way your offense philosophically is going to run without him?
Well, it has to. Anytime you have a player of that caliber, you know, the mentality you try to set is just, well, next man up. The problem is next man up's not as good. Otherwise, he wouldn't be the next man up. But that's the mentality that you have. But yes, when we lost Jamal Lewis after our Super Bowl year, that dramatically changed, obviously, the formula, or what we had previously been good at to win a Super Bowl: defense, run the ball, no turnovers. And now we didn't have any running backs. So yeah, it's got to schematically change. The Bengals are good enough, and obviously in a division where they can kind of keep touch with it until Chase comes back. But yeah, it's going to have to change in terms of Burrow, where he's going to go to get those big plays. It's going to have to be spread around. You're going to have to get it with play calling a little bit more, rather than just, look, we know we got this matchup, and when I get press coverage or I get man for man, I know that's where I'm going. It's going to take a little more orchestration to get it done. But they can do it, but it is going to be a big loss for them.
When you talk about, you briefly mentioned there about the play calling. So, I mean, walk us through inside the mind of an offensive guy like you, where you know you have these other guys that I mentioned. That, I mean, most people feel like T. Higgins could be a number 1 on most teams. Tyler Boyd could be a number 2 on most teams. He's a number 3 on this team. But your play calling, are you looking for more stuff, you know, maybe down the middle, slant stuff, tight end stuff, all that kind of thing? Walk us through the play calling part. And I know down and distance dictates a lot of that, but at least schematically, if you're charting your first 15, 20 plays, what would that look like?
Well, it's all of the above. And when on any play chart I had, you talk about that great 98 team in Minnesota, I had a Chris Carter box, and I had a Randy Moss box, and I had a Robert Smith box that said, okay, if I need something, these are the go-to plays for him to get the ball down the field. And obviously the way to get the ball to Chris was a little bit different than the way we would try to get it to Randy or to Andrew Glover, or, you know, right on down the line. So yeah, what the Bengals are going to have to do is they're going to have their boxes with these other guys that says, okay, first, what is it they do best? Is it the one-on-one stick routes for the tight end? Am I crossing the receivers? Do I have a receiver still that if I see that press one-on-one, I can go there? Certainly the running game's got to be picked up. Maybe you're going to run the ball a little bit more and rely on that, particularly in a critical situation. So, yeah, it definitely changes the play calling and where you're going to go with each of these athletes to get that big play, because we've talked about it forever and a day. Turnovers and big plays. That's the key barometers for winning. And both ways. You can't give up the ball, but you got to get turnovers. Can't give up big plays, but you got to get big plays. So where do I manufacture those big plays with these guys? Can I? Or now do I have to be a little bit more patient and rely more on my first and second down run and play action calls?
All right, I want to skip around a few things that happened in the league yesterday. And again, I just find it so interesting to go inside the mind of a head coach when certain things come up. The end of the Panthers-Falcons game, they throw a Hail Mary. DJ Moore catches it, gets behind the defenders. That's a different topic all entirely. But he catches it, immediately takes off his helmet. He's flagged for 15 yards, which turns the PAT into a 48-yard try, which they missed. Now, they could have won the game in overtime. Pinheiro missed a field goal there, but the Falcons ultimately win the game. Does the coach call that guy into his office after the game and ask him what in the hell exactly he's thinking about when you know that is a rule?
Yeah, you use it with the team as a whole. You love – what I will tell you is there's 31 other teams in the National Football League that the head coaches are going to show this play and cover the circumstances, because there's nothing better than getting a real teaching moment done when it didn't cost you. and you put that in front of your team and say, okay, guys, here's an example. If this happens, tell me what I'm supposed to do. Let me help you. Tell me, is this guy right? It's the emotion of it. It's the whole thing. Or do we all agree this is stupid? And let's not do this if we find ourselves in the same situation. With regards to the Panthers, they know. And with the team, you kind of do address it because you're constantly reminding your team, guys, particularly now in the NFL where everything's kind of smushed together, the difference between winning and losing is so subtle. And there's so many situational, you're constantly bringing up the situational opportunities for a team so that you can take, it's very Belichickian, this is what he's supposed to be best at, to take advantage of it when it comes up. Well, here's a perfect example. We pull out a 1 in a million play, but then we kind of waste it because we lose our emotion. We let the emotion of the moment overcome us, and it costs us the game. Now, fortunately for the Carolina Panthers, it's who cares? Because, okay, instead of being 2-6, maybe you're 3-5. But the point being that, yes, it costs us a game, guys, and this is not who we can be. Not if we want to win. And the players should respond to that. They know you really don't have to, have to address it because everybody knows this was a mistake. But you do want to underline it to say, guys, we're not going to do this going forward. That or you're not going to be around. And because we can't lose games in an NFL where a little thing what if we were a contending team? What if this was near the end of the season? What if this one win changed our playoff or even our chance to get into the playoffs? And it likely could in any given scenario. What are we going to do? So you're constantly holding that mirror up to them.
If you had to buy as a stock one of these two teams, which one are you buying the most if the price is the same? The Dallas Cowboys or the Minnesota Vikings?
Wow. Because we've gotten to the point where, particularly with the Vikings, Dallas less so because they're always in that situation, it seems like. But it's like you're kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? Are they really this good? Is it the schedule? Yeah, no, they're a good football team. And the Dallas Cowboys, that against the Bears was very impressive. Now, the Bears put up, hard to imagine, the Bears put up 240 yards rushing against the Cowboys and lost. Now, the Cowboys put up 200 yards rushing. Dak Prescott was incredibly efficient. I think he was 9 of 11 on third down. So the Cowboys played very well. I'm a little worried about them giving up that kind of rushing yards in terms of buying their stock. But the hard part is they're now untypical of the NFC East. There's a team they're chasing in the Philadelphia Eagles. Now they're just 2 games back, and they get a chance to play Philadelphia. And Philadelphia is showing that it's clearly real. So if I had to buy of the two, I'd probably buy the Minnesota stock only because I'm not sure in their division that division is a mess. Detroit's the black hole. Green Bay, just those troubles seem to persist. Chicago still is, just not been able to totally piece it together. So to answer your question, even though I don't think they're a better team necessarily, I'd buy Minnesota because I like the division they're in.
The debate that I find really interesting, especially after watching Buffalo last night. Now, look, Buffalo wins 27-17. Josh Allen was very sloppy for a lot of that game, especially with the football in his hands, and that's every snap. Throws 2 picks. He does have a couple of touchdowns. But Buffalo's defense, which everybody tells me is so great, Green Bay runs for well over 200 yards. It's 7 yards per carry in the game. When you look at Buffalo and then you look at Philadelphia, now I know Buffalo's schedule and their quality of wins has been far more impressive so far than the Eagles. But which of those two teams have you been most impressed by this year? I mean, one of them's lost once and the other one's lost none.
You certainly have to be impressed with what's going on in Philadelphia. And Buffalo, I think, is what they did. And you're right, they did not look very good. But it's a good sign when you do not play well and you can win 27-17. I think Josh Allen, again, we know he's the real deal. Was not a good night for him. if so often when we ask these questions, what we're really saying, okay, which quarterback would you take, right? Because that's really what it comes down to. Jalen Hurts is obviously playing well, doing some really good things. Josh Allen continues to look spectacular, notwithstanding what happened yesterday. So, I probably go with Buffalo, but Philadelphia's for real, and they're playing good, solid defense, and obviously Jalen Hurts they've come around to really piecing together the right formula for what they're going to do in Philadelphia and how they're going to use him and how comfortable they are with him running the ball. And there's a certain physicality to what they're doing now, which is good for Philly, because you got to have it in Philly because they're so tough there. But when you look at, and particularly, you put up 35 points on a Pittsburgh Steelers team. Well, I know it's not a great team right now, but it's still the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Jalen Hurts was very solid in the pass game, 4 touchdowns. And the defense played very, very well. So Philadelphia is for real. But right now, and the good thing for Philadelphia, I don't know that there's a whole lot of challengers for Philadelphia in the NFC right now. There will be, and we get to the playoffs, and we'll see whether the 49ers, the Rams, or the Seahawks, or where Dallas can continue. And so they are going to be challenged compared to the AFC, where there's still a lot of people nipping at the heels of the Buffalo Bills.
All right, I said I was going to ask you this question before you came on, and I'm curious because I made this statement, and there's some that agree on our chat room here, watching online, and others disagree. If Deshaun Watson, and I'm taking all the personal stuff out, okay? I'm taking that out for a minute. If Deshaun Watson is healthy and he gets his sea legs back under him, at the end of the day, you had to go win a game tomorrow, and I know this is putting you on the spot. But who do you like better between Deshaun Watson and Lamar Jackson?
Oh, wow.
I know that's a tough one.
Yeah, if we're talking about the Deshaun Watson that we've seen and notwithstanding a certain, like all the things you're talking about, if we're talking about apples to apples here in terms of they're both in the same spot, frankly, I'm going to go with Deshaun Watson because we've had this conversation many times. Lamar Jackson's a truly unique talent, and you can win with Lamar Jackson. But I'm still a firm believer that in order to win it all, I'm talking about the ultimate prize. Maybe in a single game, maybe you go with Lamar Jackson just because he's so spectacular. But if you're talking about if I get to choose one for a season to make a run at a Super Bowl, I'm not sure I don't take Deshaun Watson because Deshaun Watson can beat you from the pocket. Plus, he does those other things. Lamar Jackson, I'm not sure can beat you from the pocket, and that's the one qualifier for me.
Who you like, Bengals or Browns tonight? No Jamar Chase. Brownies are beat up, but I think the Browns are a desperate team. When they lost to the Ravens, they go to 2-5. They lose tonight inside the division. They go to 2-6, and they're all but done in trying to win this thing, even with Watson coming back down the road. How do you think that plays out tonight in Cleveland?
I was very impressed with Cleveland when I did the Ravens games last week. They're running at Chubb. They're at home. They're running at Chubb. Brissett is a good, solid, serviceable quarterback that kind of stays away from mistakes. With Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney to put pressure on Burrow, and as we know, that's the key. If you get pressure on Burrow, their productivity goes down. If you don't, then Burrow has one of his 350-yard, 4-touchdown games, Chase present or not. But I think the Browns match up very well with the Bengals, and they're at home. So it comes down. If they're running the ball well, which they're certainly capable of doing. I was very impressed with the running game. Brissett stays away from the big turnovers, and they start getting pressure with those two ends on Bengals. Bengals are going to be in for a struggle.
All right. Brian Billick, you're the man. We thank you for your time as always, buddy. Have a good rest of your Monday.
Sounds good.
All right, Brian Billick. Love. I hope all of you feel the same way that I do. To get inside the head of a guy that has had to sit with all the pressure in that seat and deal with issues like game planning. We talked about at the very beginning. I found it fascinating when he's sitting there that he has a box. I got a Chris Carter box. I got a Randy Moss box. I got a Robert Smith box. I would imagine a lot of that stuff has not changed through the years, and Zach Taylor would have something similar, if not exactly right. But then you get into the mind of a head coach about, okay, your player did what DJ Moore did yesterday. And I know a lot of our fans on here are screaming and yelling, you ought to be allowed to celebrate. That's not what we're talking about here, okay? We don't make the rules. Somebody else makes the rules, and maybe they ought to change the rules, okay? Maybe you ought to be able to take off your shirt after you score a touchdown. I don't care what they do. But the bottom line is you take off your helmet, and that's a 15-yard penalty, period. End of story. Just like A.J. Brown when he made that incredible catch yesterday, and two Steelers just smash into one another. Both of them fall down. Brown catches a ball, and he's standing there, and he points at each one. You can't do it. 15-yard penalty, right? But I think that stuff with Billick is interesting. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, just like Sir Boy Wonder says in the chat, Brian Billick is one of the best guests that we can have on here every week. I think that the celebration thing, the helmet, to me, is okay. I mean, I don't care if players are taunting. I understand why they did it. It's like setting a bad example for the younger generation. Like, you don't want bad sportsmanship. But who cares? It's the NFL. These guys are pros. Who cares, right? Like, a finger point, that's what we're going to call taunting for?
Yeah.
Now, somebody wrote on here that says the NFL has come out and said that should not have been called a penalty. I don't see that anywhere.
Yeah, because he was not inside the field.
Well, I understand that, but the league hasn't come out and said that, right? The league has not officially come out and said there should not have been a penalty called there. Have they?
I haven't seen one way or the other, but Andrew has been in the chat this entire show saying that. So,
yeah. Okay, Andrew, maybe you're
I'll
right.
back it up.
I just can't find it. Maybe the league has come out and said that. You know, one thing we have not talked about today, and we're not going to get into it now because we're going to do our picks here in a minute.
Oh, so it was Terry McCauley, the rules analyst, the old rules analyst. Obviously, was the
for CBS.
It was an NFL. Yeah, it was a referee forever. Terry McCauley said NBC.
Oh, and really? Okay.
Yeah.
NBC.
So Tony Dungy tweeted, "Our NBC rules analyst Terry McCauley says, according to the written rule, this should not have been called a penalty because Moore was not on the field when he took off his helmet."
You mean on the actual playing field?
Yeah, like he was out the back of the end zone when it happened.
Okay.
So
look, okay, you can just pick on all that. That's
fine.
That's fine. You know something we've not talked about today, and I have to tell you, I'm not surprised we haven't talked about it. Is the World Series continuing on tonight? I mean, I know around here it's Bengals, Browns, Monday Night Football, Halloween, big, huge game. So that's naturally going to take center stage in our area. But I don't hear anybody else talking about it. Do you?
I mean, I love baseball, so I've watched. I follow it. I watch. Reed and we love baseball. So I think it's been a great first couple of games, especially with the way the Phillies came back in Game 1 being down, which somebody said that on, I think, the pregame. So I think it was Joe Davis in the open for Game 2 said it was kind of a microcosm of the Phillies season. You get down, you claw your way back, you win Game 1, but then you lose Game 2 going away. And I always say, if you're a team that's going to win one of the two games, right, you always say that you're trying to split the road games. You're trying to get it back to your side, to get home field advantage back on your end. So you split the first two games on the road. Now you have home field advantage going the next 3 in Philadelphia starting tonight. So I've always said that if you're going to win one of the two games, I'd rather win the second game. You got to win one of the games. But I'm just saying, it's always kind of a weird feeling where you got to be able to win.
Look, whenever you go to the visiting team's house in the first two games of the series, you say to yourself, yeah, well, we'd love to win two, But split, we're going to be happy.
You got to split.
And I mean, when they come back on Verlander, and my son read something to me yesterday. As great as Verlander has been, and he's going to win his third Cy Young this year, he had an incredible regular season. But he stunk in the division series. He pitched good. His one start in the LCS, and he blows a 5-0 lead the other night. Point was made that Madison Bumgarner, it was something insane that he could pitch 23 or 25 straight innings and give up X number of runs, and his career ERA in the World Series would still be lower than Justin Verlander. Now, maybe Verlander comes back and pitches in Game 5 or Game 6 and he's lights out. I don't know. But your big guys got to deliver the goods, man. And really, for the Phillies, neither one of their big guys have delivered the goods. Not Nola and not Wheeler. So Verlander's not alone. Now you're falling into the 3, 4, 5 guys on both starters, on both teams. And this is where the rubber meets the road. And by the way, how about our guy Castellanos? Made the great diving catch. Yeah. Great stuff. We've already told you, in case you missed it, he has agreed to come on our show. He was going to be on the very first show. Said he was excited about it and the opportunity to come on. So, Castellanos isn't a hater. He's a lover, not a hater. He's going to come on our show, and we hope we bring him on as a World Series champion. Picks next, boys.
Picks next.
How did we do? We're back in a moment.
At United Dairy Farmers, we've perfected freshness in our family bakery, where we use only the finest ingredients, like thick, high-quality glazes on our signature donuts, before delivering them fresh from bakery to store every day. UDF, made for you.
If your AC or furnace is struggling, turn to the experts at Bartell's Heating and Cooling. Their certified technicians get the job done right the first time, and if you need a new unit, Bartell's will give you upfront pricing with no hidden fees. Plus, ask about Bartell's 0% interest financing for 60 months. Learn more at bartellsheatingandcooling.com. Bartell's Heating and Cooling, for a comfortable way of life. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, proudly sponsoring high school football with 3 locations in Mason, Liberty Township, and Ross, Ohio. Our 10-foot screens guarantee a great view from every seat in the house. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, the best place in Cincinnati for sports, food, and fun.
Where can you turn when you're in pain? Turn where more high school, college, and pro athletes turn. Where your neighbors and weekend warriors turn. Turn to Beacon Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and get superior care on your schedule. That's the Beacon difference.
Check out our fresh arrivals at Jake Swinney Used Cars. Over 250 used vehicles weekly. All makes, all models. From economy to luxury, Jake Swinney, the original used car superstore.
All right, we got a lot going on at Chatterbox Sports. Want to talk about a couple of other programming notes. Paul, you have your show, Not Too Picky, coming up later today at 2 o'clock, correct?
Yep, 2 o'clock. We'll cover all the Bengals, Browns bets you need to know for tonight.
Prop bets, everything, right? Is there a prop bet, just to give us a little sneak preview? Is there one prop bet you like tonight?
I like Joe Mixon to score a touchdown tonight.
Ooh.
Touchdown score.
Okay.
Picky parlay. Yeah, we'll do the picky parlay, pulse parlay. We'll get all that going. Where the mic's off again, Casey. There we go. Yes, Not Too Picky, 2 o'clock today. We'll get you the Browns bets, Bengals bets, Joe Mixon anytime touchdown scores, the prop bet I like. And we'll go through all that. 2 o'clock today.
Okay.
Right here on the Chatterbox Sports YouTube.
Okay. Yeah, the note was Reed Mouse found it. I talked about Bumgarner. He could give up 25 straight home runs and still have a lower ERA than Verlander in the World Series. How about that? Sir Boy Wonder says, not too picky is the best show we have going. That's a nice compliment. Is that your brother? Is that
I don't know who that is, but I appreciate it, Sir Boy Wonder.
Is that your girlfriend disguising her name as Sir Boy Wonder?
She's teaching the future of America. I hope she's not commenting right now.
Brandon Seho begins his mental health show tomorrow. That is going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can find it at YouTube/Chatterbox Sports. I mean, his guest list, and he's been jumping in the car and driving everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Who's the first guest out of the gate? Do you know?
Yeah, it's Sam Hubbard tomorrow.
Hubbard.
And it'll debut. It's pre-recorded, so it won't be like a live show, but it will debut at 8 o'clock. It's actually on the Mental Game podcast YouTube, which is its own channel.
Oh,
it's
okay.
it's under the Chatterbox network of shows and everything, but it has its own channel. Just because it's all pre-recorded content, we put it under its own channel. And it also, you can go ahead right now. The podcast for Brandon is live. So just like Tom's show, my show, the Box Lunch, which will be starting soon, the Mental Game Podcast is available on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, anywhere you find your podcast. It's already on there. There's a trailer, and Brandon shared his personal mental health story. Both of those episodes are on there already, so you can go ahead, like, subscribe, review, all of that on all those podcast platforms.
Okay. That's going to be great stuff.
Yep.
Very much looking forward to that. Box Lunch, we thought maybe would start today. Trace Fowler under the weather. And Trace, get better, buddy. We miss having you around here. Miss seeing your smiling face and your commentary and your smart aleck remarks. But seriously, my friend, get better. We miss you. Okay, boys.
Here we go.
We start with the collegiate ranks, correct?
We do. Casey, I have the graphic up here. Is it not
It's not wanting to respond. Just give me a second. We'll fix it.
Okay.
Hold on.
So, again, for those of you who are just new to our show, and we're getting literally hundreds by the day, $1,000 to the charity of choice goes to the winner who has the best record. We roughly pick, 4 or 5 games in college, some weeks a little more, 4 or 5 games in the NFL, same thing. A little more sometimes, depending on the week. I was the only fool who picked the UC Bearcats. You guys jump on me right out of the gate.
Yep.
It's a disappointing loss for UC.
Yeah, this was a game at UCF. Like I said on Friday's show, I thought UC was going to struggle in this game. You're going to have to see which UC team came out to play. UC was in position to win it, but UCF, a couple of really good scoring drives from UCF to win and cover in this game.
Yeah, they just continued to let teams stick in there. They continued to just not bury teams.
Well, you can't stop the run. I mean,
Yeah.
we knew that going in. Dan Horde talked about it, and the offense, I think in the first half, did virtually nothing. If you're playing a decent team, you give up 258 yards rushing. Now, we saw in the NFL, Brian just alluded to it a minute ago. I mean, Green Bay rushed for over 200 last night. Dallas, the Bears rushed for over 230 yards. They got beat. College game, not going to happen against a team that can score. By the way, Sir Boy Wonder said we got to get Charles Barkley on the show. Take it to the bank. He will be on the show.
All right.
When basketball season starts.
Charles
and I go way back.
One more thing before, just from the chat, I see Andrew saying that I expect to be hosted to an original members luncheon meet and greet in 6 months when the show goes to the moon. We have talked about doing live events in the future with Chatterbox. We're not quite sure what that looks like, but we do appreciate everybody that has been in the chat so far and helped grow the show. There's so many of you that have been consistent listeners day in and day out. So down the line, look for that. We are going to start doing live events. Maybe we'll do an episode of this show live somewhere sometime down the line. So we'll let you know when that comes up.
Okay, cool.
Next show. Or next pick.
Off we go. The Ohio State Buckeyes. Again, I get jobbed at the end. Ohio State goes up 44-20, or whatever it was. They had covered 44-20 something. And the last minute and a half, Penn State goes down the field, scores a touchdown. So, you two win. I'm out of the gate. Right now, 0-2. You two guys are 2-0, but I have a feeling it's about to change.
Yeah, this was a tough one. This was a game that I said on Friday. Penn State just plays Ohio State frisky at home. And Casey, great switch.
Yeah, it was a last-minute decision to switch to Penn State. You did a great job changing my mind before we actually made the picks. And let's be honest here. Sean Clifford is the bane of my existence for Penn State fans. I mean, he almost gave up that cover with that pick six touchdown, right? I mean,
backdoor wide open.
I'm just happy that he ended up recovering from his mistake.
All right, next game.
Okay, here we go. Tide will start to turn. Although Paul goes to 3-0. This was a rout. I have not watched Kentucky enough. I did early in the year. I don't know if the Levis kid is hurt or not. I don't know if the talent around him is good. But for all those people we're talking about this guy being a top 3 pick or whatever it was in the NFL draft, number 1 pick in the NFL draft.
Yeah, that's a bad take now.
Levis? Yeah, he's gotten a lot of number 1 pick buzz over the whole last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'd bet money on that one, that ain't happening.
Yep, that was a bad take on my part.
Are you taking him over C.J. Stroud?
A lot of people have been saying that for the last 5 months.
Okay.
Hooker.
Well, watch the games is what I would recommend. Watch the games.
All right. Next one up. Oh, this is brutal. This is brutal. Good job to you two. This is brutal.
Horned Frogs. They get the late touchdown, Paulie. Late touchdown to cover.
This is brutal. An offside to just throw it up to the end zone.
Free play.
Free play.
That's what an experienced quarterback does. Instead of flipping the ball to the official, he says, hey, put it up. Max Duggan, gamer, leader of men.
Leader of men. We like that guy.
This hit the over, too. Brutal.
TCU plays Texas Tech at home this week. That's not a gimme. That's not a layup. But TCU all of a sudden is getting so big that Fox pregame show that they have with Urban Meyer and Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush and Brady Quinn, that whole group, they're going to Fort Worth this week. I'll be down there checking them out. But then TCU goes to Texas the following week. Texas isn't great, but it's still Texas. So TCU right there.
Are you going to join in on that pregame?
Of course I'm not. You mean on the pregame?
No, not on the set. But are you going to be in the back with the sign?
No, we're going to get in. We're going to
check out Chatterbox
Urban.
Sports.
No, Urban is nice enough to kind of get us inside the boundary there. But I can promise you that's going to be mayhem down there at TCU. That campus is unbelievable, and so is that stadium. And they love football all over the state of Texas. That is going to be rocking. That's 11 a.m. kick, Texas time.
All right, next one.
All right.
Last college game.
Zachary says not an Urban guy. Sorry, that's okay. We say it all the time. You don't have to be. It's all right. All right. This is where we start picking up some steam on Paul, Casey.
What?
No, we didn't.
Oh, my God, you're kidding
By a half
me.
point.
By a half point. That's awesome.
By half
Georgia
point.
stinks.
Georgia stinks. I was disappointed too, Tom. I mean, it was 42-20 at the beginning of the fourth quarter. I'm like, oh, I got this. We got this wrapped up, and they just never scored again. So,
Tell you, it's going to be this coming weekend in the Southeastern Conference. I don't know if they turn into 2 blowouts. I have no idea. But I mean to tell you, there is so much riding on this weekend and those 2 games. So much. Alabama trying to keep its playoff hopes alive. This is desperation mode for Alabama. They're expected to win. They were picked to win. And all of a sudden, LSU's got it going on. And tied for first with Alabama. That game is in Baton Rouge. And then on the other side, it's the biggest game of the college football season so far, without a doubt. Tennessee at Georgia. We're doing our picks this week, by the way, fellas, on Thursday. I have to leave town on Friday. So be ready Thursday. Any early thoughts on that when that line's moving around on that Tennessee game, Paul?
Yeah, it jumped huge. That line opened at 12.5, and it's already down to 8.5. Everybody, I think 90% of the money right now is on Tennessee. That line moved 4 points in about 24 hours. People love the Volunteers in this game.
We got a question from who is it? First time I've seen this name. R. Clelmer said, would like to see Urban on the show. Urban told me the other day, if he gets a green light from his bosses at Fox, he will be joining us as the big interview on the Wednesday before the Ohio State-Michigan game.
Ooh, what a guess that would be. That'd be awesome.
The only thing is, fellas, I think we have to figure out, I could be wrong, take a look in the calendar on this. Is that the Wednesday before Thanksgiving?
Oh, actually, you know what? It could be.
Because if it is, we got to tape it, but he'll be on Wednesday.
Ohio State.
So I got to remember that when I reach out to him. I'm going to see him Friday night.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it is.
We got to tape that, but he said he'd love to come on, and that'd be great. Okay, where else are we? done with the college game?
Yep, into the NFL.
Into the National Football League, and the Lone Ranger to take the unbeaten high-flying Fly Eagles Fly, and they roll the Men of Aluminum.
The Steelers stink. They just stink. My Lord. That was a disastrous game. But watching that game, I thought, I'll watch this game, check out the Eagles. I haven't watched much of them this year. That connection between Hurts and A.J. Brown is something else.
No doubt. That A.J. Brown's a stud, man.
He is.
Well, what does this mean, Andrew? Tom, usually only adult sites contain teases like that. What did I say something that was out of
You're
line?
teasing Urban Meyer. No. I think he means it more as a compliment than a.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm not sure. Okay.
We swung and missed here, Tom.
Boy, did we ever! The Rams, they're done.
They're done. Stamp of done.
Telling you guys,
they're done. And you said it, Casey.
They stink. The Rams stink.
They really
I tried
do.
telling you guys.
They really do. I mean, they got dominated in every way imaginable by the 49ers in that game.
And not only that, I think they lost Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, maybe.
For an extended period of time.
We'll see.
Not looking good.
He was limping around the locker room afterwards. I saw where, and I admire anybody in life who, when they feel like they made a mistake or for sure did make a mistake, they own it. I saw where Sean McVay came out and said, I kicked myself for throwing the ball. They were getting killed. And he threw the ball down the field, and that's when Kupp got hurt near the end. He said, why are we throwing the ball? He said, that's on me. The Rams, gosh. I tell you, I don't want to play the 49ers.
No, I don't either.
I don't want to play them when they're healthy. And McCaffrey has brought a dimension to that team that, they are scary. We'll see how it plays out. There are some believers out there in Geno. Can you spell it for me, please, fellas? Can you spell the man's name?
Geno.
Thank you.
Well,
You better start saying that regularly.
I said when making this pick, if DK Metcalf played, I would have picked Seattle. And what ends up happening? He ends up playing the game, and they end up winning. It's unfortunate that I didn't try to make one of those bets where if this player plays one snap, we can switch picks. But I'm going to own up to it. I thought the Giants were up for the challenge with or without DK, honestly. But it was just the Giants' offense couldn't do anything. They could not do anything. And Daniel Jones, I don't know.
I can't lie. I did not watch a single play of this game, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm going to talk about it one way or the other. But from the talk of both of you guys about my Daniel Jones take, sounds like it was not a pretty one for the Giants.
I've never been a nice young man. Met him a couple of times when I did their games his rookie year. Nice kid, smart kid, great athlete. But, I mean, they're 6-2, okay? But they are not going to beat anybody any good if they've got to rely on the quarterback to win the game. It's not going to happen. It's not. I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up losing 5-6 games this year. They're going to lose to Philadelphia. They're going to lose to Dallas. So that's right out of the gate. It's not going to be a layup against the Commanders. And I don't know who else they play outside their division the rest of the way. They've got a favorable schedule because they were in dead last year. But Daniel Jones is, and maybe he makes a believer out of me down the road, but not yet. Okay.
All right, last one here because our other game is Cincinnati. Hey-o! I'll take it.
I mean, it was honestly a lot closer than – well, it wasn't – hang on. Let me restart that. It was not as close as the score appears right here, but it wasn't like the Bills blew them out like I thought they would. I mean, they struggled a little bit. Josh Allen was not able to just tear them apart like I thought. The issue with the Packers is not defense, and that's very clear. I mean, they cannot do anything offensively over throwing the ball. The only thing they can do is run. And once they start to realize that these teams just stack the box and Aaron Rodgers still can't throw it down the field, it's tough to watch, man. It really is.
I tell you, it's going to be interesting to watch that team the rest of the year where they go from here. They are already 3 games behind Minnesota for the division lead. 3 games behind. By the way, it's Kilmer, so please forgive me. Welcome, Mr. Kilmer. Welcome to the chat. I want to make sure I pronounce your name right, so forgive me.
The Bills had a couple of chances to go out there and cover in this game, but this was a total, like I said on Friday's show, hold your nose, it stinks, but take it anyway type of game for me. That's exactly what I did. It made me nervous when I saw how much of the public was on this game, but I still stuck with it. I liked the Packers last night to get it done by less than 11, and they did. And actually, you know what? They had a couple of breaks. I mean, they were kind of hanging around in that game with 3 minutes left. It's not like it was a blowout.
I mean, Buffalo looked, and not a surprise. There's no perfect team. Well, I guess you could say the Eagles are undefeated, but they did not. They looked like a team that could be beaten, to me. I still think Allen gets a little sloppy with the ball sometimes. Great, I mean, talented player. I'm not ready to give him the league MVP yet. There's a long way to go in this season. And then we have tonight, boys. Where did we lock in our picks on the spread of this game? Because it has changed, right? Or was it 3 all along?
I think we locked it in here. I'll pull it back up. We did lock it in at 3. Depending on what site you're on right now, it's around 3 or 3.5, which I know does make a big difference. But mostly it's hung around 3, so that's where we're going to leave it at 3. But we all picked the Bengals anyway, so we're all either sailing or going down with the ship.
All right, if either one of you could change that pick, and you still have time because the game is not till tonight.
Yeah.
If either you could change it, you're able to change it, will you change it?
Can I double down?
No, I'm saying would you flip to the Browns at this point?
No, I would not.
Paul?
Tom, if you think I'm going to sit up here for 7 straight days and talk about how the Browns stink and then at the very end change my pick to the Browns, I would lose the little bit of credibility that I have with our esteemed viewership on YouTube and on podcast form. So I will be sticking with the Cincinnati Bengals tonight.
Say, I'm wrestling.
Oh, don't do that.
I'm wrestling. Tom. I'm wrestling.
Well,
I listened to Brian Billick right there, and he continues to point out, or he points out something that we talked about last week briefly. And that's this whole Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney thing. Because it's the first time since the Dallas game the Bengals are facing a pair of legitimate pass rushers to get after the quarterback.
So are you going to do it? I can switch the graphic right now.
No, I'm not.
I don't want to talk you into it.
I'm not.
All right.
And Sir Boy Wonder, if you think I'm going to come out and say the Browns stink, I'm not going to do it. By the way, Sir Boy Wonder also brings up, it starts tomorrow night. And if I didn't have to be here at roughly 9 o'clock in the morning in Hamilton, Ohio, I would be in my car tomorrow after this show going to Athens, Ohio. First place on the line tomorrow night at Peden Stadium, the beginning, Paul, of
Maction.
Doesn't get any better than Maction.
Oh, baby.
For those of you that don't know Maction, starting this week and the remainder of the year, they play games on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday nights inside the Mid-American Conference. Great idea by ESPN. It's great for the schools. They're on when nobody else is on. Bobcats v. Buffalo tomorrow night. First place on the line. You want to make an early pick on that one? We got a little. We'll do it tomorrow.
All right.
We'll look up the line on that.
Ball
Okay.
State and Kent State too.
I know nobody cares. I know my mother-in-law cares. She went to Ball State. My father-in-law cares. He went to Ball State. Outside of them, nobody. Okay. Now, our cherry on top presented by United Dairy Farmers.
Yes, our cherry on top is something that has never been done before, and I spent yesterday going around looking at this and making sure I had it right to explain it today. This is a NASCAR race from yesterday. This is a guy named Ross Chastain. Now, the NASCAR postseason has been flipped a little bit to up the ante. They've upped the anticipation, upped the excitement. So the way it works now is that there are going to be 4 drivers next week competing in the championship race. They are not competing necessarily to win the race. The only thing they are doing is trying to finish ahead of the other 3. Right? So the only thing they have to do is finish ahead of the other guys that they are competing against. And there are only 4 drivers that are qualifying for next week's championship race. Well, yesterday, it was coming right down to the end of this race. And this driver, named Ross Chastain, was in 10th place with about 300 feet to go in the race. Now, this NASCAR track that they raced on yesterday, it's a unique one. It's in Martinsville, and it's a tight, short track with very tight, small turns. And Ross Chastain did something that's never been done in the sport of NASCAR before, and we'll show you the video, and then I'll explain it right after. So Chastain opens up the throttle and puts the
Back up a second, because you didn't really tee it up about what the deal was. He was in 10th place.
Yeah.
He needed to beat the guy who was in 5th place.
Yes.
As he goes along this turn.
Yes.
Right?
So you see Denny Hamlin right there in the FedEx car. Chastain passes him right there at the end as he crosses the checkered line. He said that he had seen this in a video game. He said he played NASCAR 2005 on the GameCube growing up, and he said, I wanted to see if I could make this happen. So he destroys the car, but he beats out and edges out Denny Hamlin coming around the corner because he went full speed, and he didn't have to brake because he rode the wall into the final turn and out of the turn. And because of that, he knocks Denny Hamlin out of the top 4. Chastain qualifies for the final 4, and he'll be competing for a championship next week. It's the equivalent of a NASCAR Hail Mary. And for those of you that are on Twitter and like the explain in another sport terms type of tweets, the tweets yesterday were incredibly entertaining, trying to figure out what a best comparison would be to another sport. This is like a spinning around doing a 360 Hail Mary from 80 yards away with one guy in quadruple coverage going up and tipping it around to himself trying to make a catch. I mean, it's something they've never seen before. And so next week it's Joey Logano, Christopher Bell, Ross Chastain, and Chase Elliott. Just straight up the 4 of those guys, whoever finishes the highest and wins the title.
And I'm told by some of our viewers, the player formerly known as Mouse Cop, says it's the fastest lap record at Martinsville by 2.5 seconds. His car's torn up. They're going to have a different car for him in that race next week. That really is amazing. I'm not a big NASCAR guy, but most of those drivers seem to be really good dudes. And that was very, very, very exciting. So, Paul, on your game for our cherry on top presented by United Dairy Farmers.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, I'm not a huge NASCAR guy, but when you see something like this, it took over the Twitter sports world for about, an hour or so yesterday when everybody was going on about it, and it was crazy. And there's a dash cam view, too, that we didn't show, but there is a great angle that the @NASCAR Twitter account tweeted out of the dash cam view of his car riding around and seeing how the car got shredded up. But you done it in a video game, and now you do it in real life.
All right, boys, before we get out of here, I know you've made picks. We've made picks with the spread. I'd like you two to give me a point prediction for tonight. Bengals in Cleveland, Monday Night Football, Halloween night. Many will be dressed up as dogs in Cleveland tonight.
I'll go first. I'm going to say 34-21. Bengals.
Wow.
34. 3 games in a row, the Bengalis.
Yep.
Hit the 30-point mark after not hitting it for 11 consecutive games.
Yep.
34 without Jamar Chase.
Yep.
It's a big number.
It's a big statement game for the Bengals.
I'm going to say Bengals 23-20, and I know that's a push on the spread, but like I said, I think the Bengals have a better shot to blow them out than the Browns do to cover, but I still think it's a close 3-point game. I'll say 23-20.
Leif Erikson says the move yesterday by Ross Chastain reminds him of when he beat Christopher Columbus to America. He's got a good sense of humor, man. Really, really good. What was your score again?
23-20 Bengals.
I'm going to go with 24-20 Bengals.
Okay.
So they cover.
They cover.
Okay. I like it.
It's going to be a heck of a game to watch. I mean, I don't care if the Browns are 2-5, Bengals are 4-3. This is going to be, because there's so much on the line, even only being not even halfway through the season. Cleveland has to win to stay relevant. The Bengals, can they win without Joe Burrow? Without Jamar Chase? What did they look like without Jamar Chase? It's going to be fun.
It's going to be fun.
Oh, by the way, did you get the picture real quick before we leave?
Oh, no, I didn't. Did I tweet it out? No, I didn't.
Well, you know what?
I can just show it to the camera. No, I'll just show it to the camera. It's okay. It's not even that worth it anyway.
Some of our predictions, 24-21. Andrew, Sir Boy Wonder, says Bengals 31-20. Andrew adds that Burrow will be sacked 5 times. 6-4-12 Mars says 34-16 Bengals. Nathan takes another shot at Cleveland. Says it's never fun to be in Cleveland. That's not true. He says except the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Museum, there's lots of fun things to do in Cleveland. Lots of fun things to do. I disagree with that. All right. That's going to be topic A tomorrow. We'll have Paul Doherty tomorrow. We'll have Tracy Jones tomorrow. A lot going on tomorrow. And then don't forget our big interview this week. Really looking forward to it, coming up on Wednesday. Will be Bronson Arroyo, recently elected to the Reds Hall of Fame. Not Too Picky comes up later on today at 2 o'clock. Paul, the best of luck on that one.
Thank you.
All right. Put your money where your mouth is.
Absolutely.
Put your money where your mouth is. Have a good day.